Hey, it is Dennis Gray, and it is show number 79 of the Australian Rock Show. Thanks for joining us, and as always, we appreciate your time in checking us out. As you can hear, I've been struggling with a cold for a while, and tonight is no different, so bear that in mind. Okay, Alice Cooper, supported by Ace Frehley, are currently doing a run of dates around the country. So I thought I'd piece together a quick show around this tour. I did have an interview lined up which got canned at the last moment. So at a moment's notice, here we go. You know, if you do a little research, you'll discover that there's been several Australian bands who've covered Alice Cooper tunes. None better than the one we're going to kick off with. From 1996, here are Sydney's Asteroid B612, ripping through Is It My Body. Lifted from the Teen Sublimation Riffs EP, released on Go back in 1996, that was long gone but fondly remembered Sydney outfit Asteroid B612 with their take of Alice Cooper's Is It My Body. They used to do that one live from memory, as did the Candy Harlots, the Mark Easton era in the late 80s, if I recall correctly. It's a ripping tune, and that interpretation there by the Asteroids is very, very cool. Of course, as many of you all know, Stu Cunningham, the guitarist from Asteroid B612, has for the past few years fronted the supercharged outfit known as Leadfinger, and they are currently cranking out the rock and roll on some European dates. Leadfinger.com.au is the place to visit. Should you be tuning in from Europe, go see them live, because trust me folks, you will not be disappointed. Actually, I think I've got a show ID from Stewie someplace. Just let me have a look. Here we go. Rightio, you are tuned in to show number 79 of the Australian Rock Show, and we are doing an episode to celebrate the Alice Cooper Ace Frehley tour, which is currently hitting Australian shores. Frehley is, of course, opening these shows, but in our rock and roll world, he is just as big a name as the Coop is, so we're calling it a co-headlining tour. This tour is actually the 40th anniversary of Alice Cooper's first visit down under, which was the Welcome to My Nightmare tour back in March of 1977. The Welcome to My Nightmare tour began in spring of 1975 in the US and continued until 1977, when the tour wound its way to both Australia and New Zealand. Suzi Quatro, in fact, opened a lot of the US shows in 1975, and for the Australian shows, Sydney outfit Hush were the tour support. Hush from memory also did Jackson 5 and Status Quo opening slots in previous years. I don't want to get too off track here, but Hush are reforming for a show next year, 3rd of March at the Palais Theatre in St Kilda in Melbourne, the Pure Gold live concert. There's a whole bunch of acts on that bill, including Hush. Hopefully they will announce more dates in the future. Anyway, back in the mid-90s, my brother and I sat down and interviewed Smiley Palethorpe, the drummer from Hush, and we spoke at great length about the Alice Cooper tour supports in March of 1977. Mark Stein, who was in Cooper's band playing keyboards, also performed on Hush's Touche album, which was released in July of 1977, which is a little fun fact there, I guess. Also in the Alice Cooper touring band were Dick Wagner on guitar, Bob Kulick on guitar, John Prakash on bass, and Penty Glan on drums. Now, I read somewhere that Kulick was filling Steve Hunter's shoes, who was touring with Peter Gabriel at that time. The tour dates were back in March of 1977, and just looking at them here, the 14th and the 15th of March, Entertainment Centre in Perth. 18th of March, the West Lakes Football Stadium in Adelaide. 21st, 22nd, 23rd and 24th of March, the Alice Cooper Welcome to My Nightmare tour back in 1977 hit Festival Hall in Melbourne. 4 nights, huh? Wow. Saturday the 26th of March, Sydney Showground, and apparently they got 40,000 people on that Saturday night. 29th, 30th and the 31st of March in 1977, Festival Hall in Brisbane. Wow, 3 nights there as well. And they went on, just reading here, April 4th, 1977 at Auckland, Western Springs Stadium with Hush. Okay, so Hush did the New Zealand show as well. Cool. Obviously, the Cooper Band of 1977 was vastly different to the original Alice Cooper Band, an outfit who influenced many, many great rock and roll outfits the world over, including Sydney's Radio Birdman. Let's hear Birdman running through Ballad of Dwight Fry. Wow, that is good. How good is that? Radio Birdman live circa 1977 doing an amazing take of Ballad of Dwight Fry. I know that in 2004 Birdman recorded that song in the studio, which was released last year on Citadel for Record Store Day as the B-side for the single Buried and Dead. I know that they've also covered tracks like Caught in a Dream live as well in recent years. Both those songs are lifted off the Love It to Death LP, the third album by Alice Cooper, released back in March of 1971. I have an original, pristine French pressing of that record, which is going to the grave with me. What an album. And I guess if you were a youngster listening to this podcast, make a note. Alice Cooper, Love It to Death, 1971. This is an album you must own. Hashtag go by what Dennis says. Ballad of Dwight Fry, by the way, has been in Cooper's live set for years and is in the set list for his current world tour. Always great to hear that one live. Shifting from album number 3 to album number 27, count 'em, 27. We should play something from Cooper's current studio album titled Paranormal. Got this sent to me a while back and it's really, really solid. A couple of the tracks on Paranormal feature Neil Smith, Dennis Dunaway and Michael Bruce from the original Alice Cooper Band. So why don't we hear one of those tracks now? From Paranormal, here's Genuine American Girl. Alice Cooper, Genuine American Girl, lifted off his current studio album Paranormal. You know, I'm no mathematician, but from my reckoning, this is Cooper's 10th visit down under. After 1977, it would be a 13-year wait till his next tour, which was the Trash Tour. Saw a couple of those dates, absolutely fantastic. Also saw the 1997 tour from memory. Then he toured on the Brutal Planet record in 2005. Get this, from memory in 2005, the Coop played Penrith Leagues Club in Sydney, believe it or not. He toured in 2011 with Orianthi as his lead guitarist, which always gets 2 thumbs up from me. Ori's shoes have since been filled by ex-Iron Maiden's guitarist Nita Strauss. Back in 1990, Cooper did an in-store in Sydney and arrived on the back of a garbage truck. Trash. Get it? The Bombers did the tour supports back then and were fantastic. Back in 1990, John Farnham had a #1 album in Australia. Tina Arena also released her Strongest Steel album. I mentioned these two, of course, in researching this show quickly, I discovered that both of those artists have cut covers of Alice Cooper's Only Women Bleed. And I nearly ended this segment on Alice Cooper by cranking Roland Howard and Lydia Lunch doing Black Juju. Make an effort to find that because it's really, really good. We will, however, end this part of the show with Tex Perkins featuring Adelita from Magic Dirt and their take of Cooper's 1977 tune You and Me. Tex Perkins with a little help from Adelita running through Alice Cooper's You and Me. You can find the original of that on the Alice Cooper album Lace and Whiskey. As is well documented, one band who had a huge influence on Kiss was indeed Alice Cooper. And in the early days when Kiss formed, their idea was that if one Alice Cooper worked, 4 Alice Coopers would work as well. And they got it right on that count. Kiss attended a Cooper show in the earliest days at Madison Square Garden. There's been quite a history between Kiss and Alice Cooper. And I know that in the late 90s, there was in fact a legal battle between Alice Cooper and Kiss, which was settled out of court. Apparently, the Kiss tune Dreaming, which many of you may be familiar with, it's lifted off their Psycho Circus album, sounding a little too close to Cooper's 1970 classic I'm 18. Kiss, Alice Cooper. Why am I telling you this? Because the original lead guitarist for Kiss, the iconic Ace Frehley, is opening this run of Cooper shows here in Australia. That's why. And it's a good segue into the second part of this show, where we focus on Space Ace. Fun fact, Frehley's final 2 shows in the heyday and reunion era were where? December 3rd, 1980, Western Springs Stadium in Auckland, and 13th of April 2001 on the Gold Coast in Queensland. Both shows down under. Anyway, let's rip into a tune lifted off his current album Origins Volume 1. Here is Ace Frehley with Cold Gin. Ace Frehley there with a smokin', no pun intended, version of the Kiss classic Cold Gin. You can find that on Frehley's most recent release, which is a collection of cover songs, and that was released last year. Some of my favourite cuts on that album are his interpretations of White Room by Cream and Fire and Water by Free, which features Paul Stanley as well. I read online someplace that Frehley should possibly take a stab at Shooting Star, which was originally done by the Joe Perry Project, which I totally agree with. Space reference aside, I reckon his vocals would suit that tune so well. So hopefully, if and when Volume 2 comes out, someone may have whispered in his ear and he indeed cuts Shooting Star. Besides Cold Gin, Frehley has also re-recorded Parasite on this most recent album, one of Frehley's earliest compositions and a track which you can find on Kiss's 1974 LP, Hotter Than Hell. One of the best covers of Parasite, I think, was done by Anthrax in the late 80s, and another great take was done by local outfit Smelly Tongues. May have seen them live back in the day, I can't recall. I know they cut a 12-inch called Pickle, which I once owned, and this version features Bill Gibson on vocals. Google The Eastern Dark and you can learn a lot about Gibson's history. He did time in the Lemonheads and was part of a great outfit called the Orange Humble Band, whose debut album we reviewed in our old fanzine back in the mid-90s. Anyway, getting off track, here are Smelly Tongues doing a great take of the Ace Frehley classic Parasite. Lifted what I consider to be the world's first Kiss tribute album called Hard to Believe, that was the Smelly Tongues with Parasite. That song, of course, penned by Ace Frehley, who is currently on tour with Alice Cooper around Australia. So we're having a bit of fun on this episode by focusing on the Coop and Space Ace, giving it an Australian flavour. Oh, and by the way, that tribute album I mentioned, which came out on Red Wax on the Waterfront label, I guess around 1990, was fetching a high price amongst collectors, as the then unknown Nirvana were included on there, doing a take of the Kiss song Do You Love Me, which, to be honest, is goddamn awful. One track on that record which is not awful, and it's the one we're going to close out with tonight, is the track Is That You, which is a Kiss tune from the Unmasked album. I know it wasn't penned by Ace Frehley, it actually wasn't even written by Kiss. English singer-songwriter Gerard McMahon takes that credit. But when I hear Is That You, it brings back some fond memories of that 1980 Australian Kiss tour, and indeed watching the band perform that on TV on Countdown before their Perth gig back in the day. Anyway, Melbourne outfit featuring, of course, the amazing talents of Anne McHugh and Sherry Rich do a rip and take of Is That You, and we'll get to that in a moment. From memory, they were also kicking off their live gigs in 1992 with a blazing take of Cooper's Raped and Freezin'. I've had both Anne and Sherry on the show on separate occasions. Make an effort to go back and listen to those interviews when you have time. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this show. It was just a quick one tonight. I pieced it together pretty much on the fly. Flies. Halo of Flies. Get it? Cooper, 1971, Killer LP. Let us know what you thought of this episode. If you are getting along to one of the Alice Cooper Ace Frehley gigs around the country, you could also let us know what you thought of that show. Send us an email, australianrockshow@gmail.com. Visit our homepage, which is at australianrockshow.com. Look for our next show, which will hopefully be available very soon. Until then, let's close out with the aforementioned Melbourne outfit Girl Monster with a vinyl rip, folks, running through the Kiss tune Is That You. Until next time, this is Dennis, out.